Do you want to ride faster without buying a new bike or fancy new carbon wheels? Your body position could be the biggest performance upgrade that you're missing. But go too aggressive and you'll lose power, but stay too upright and you'll lose speed. So where is that sweet spot? Hi, I'm Phil Mosley from MyProCoach, and in today's video, my colleague Ant Gritton sits down with the world-renowned bike fitter Phil Burt. They'll be diving into the science of aerodynamics versus comfort and how to strike the perfect balance between free speed and sustainable power.
Hi Phil, thank you so much for joining us. So we are going to do a video on how to balance aero and comfort in bike fitting, and you are the perfect man for the job. So I thought we'd open up by painting a bit of a picture in terms of what aero looks like, what a super aerodynamic position looks like, and what a more comfortable position looks like. So can we start with that?
Yeah, sure. I think a window to look at this is to consider what I call the three pillars of fit. So they would be aerodynamics, power, and then comfort stroke sustainability. Yeah. Because some people are paying a lot of money not to be comfortable. I think comfort's a little bit of a dirty word. We sort of make it sound like, oh, it's easy and everything. But as we'll see, it's really important to actually achieving your goals sometimes. Because I think if we take one of the shortest, fastest races in the world, which would be men's team pursuit on the track, which I was used to set up those positions, they're incredibly aggressive because they only got to hold them for just shy of 4 minutes, less than 4 minutes now. So the aero box on that is huge, right? We need to be as aero as we can to win and powerful. We're not going to give up power, but comfort and sustainability have gone right down. We can put up with that long, and then if we go to the other end of the spectrum and we go all the way to I need to finish an Ironman. I'm going to have to ride, for this many hours, then obviously you can't be that aero and powerful. And I think that's a common mistake. People think, I've got to be you need to think about the sustainability of that position, because it may well be aero for 3-4 minutes. But if you're popping outside that aero pocket, then actually the sum total of how aero is a lot less. So with those things, I think what we do is you tweak the dial on them. So it's not necessarily a more comfortable position necessarily, but a time trial position for Ironman would definitely be, if you ask me, normally higher at the front, so that and with maybe some modifications to saddle and crank length to maintain a more sustainable position, which is directly related to how comfortable you are, of course. But we're not saying that you're on like a sit up and beg Dutch bike,
That's cool. So I mean, obviously there is a point where being aero becomes counterproductive. How would we know that as an amateur going out for a ride, for example? Is there a telltale sign? Is there things that we should be able to be aware of when we're riding?
Yeah, because the general rule of being lower at the front, it gets more aero. It works at a certain point. As been a person who spent many long, boring hours in a wind tunnel, used to get really excited about going in those, but not anymore. And it's a lot of work to find out. But generally, the lower you are at the front, it tends to get more aero. But it gets to a point where it goes the other way. So you get so low that you can't hold it anymore. Your head pops up, you pop out of position, your hips are rocking, you're moving around. People forget that when you're going low at the front, you're closing up the hip at the back. So that can lead to. So a lot of the issues might not be with your front moving, but it's the whole back end being compromised in terms of producing power. So quite often people get too low at the front. They're more aero, but they've wiped off 40 watts of optimal power reduction, so they're going slower anyway, So I think the big thing for me would be recognizing things in these days where we can measure virtually everything. One thing I measure is if you're trying an aero position and all of a sudden you see your power drop start to go down, it's too low, all right? And it's compromising your hip power production unit. So there you go, bring it back up, power goes back, fantastic. And just simply, am I literally fidgeting all the time and moving out of this? A good aerodynamic position for a long event should be fairly comfortable to rock into and stay there. Of course, everyone's going to move now and again to relieve muscle tension and everything, but you should feel fairly locked in, And I think I like people when I do my fit to feel like they feel, as they describe it quite often, they feel much more over the bottom bracket, locked in, and can produce the power. And the front end just follows that, if you ask me, follows it. And we set it up to follow it.
Interesting. Would they notice signs in their upper body at all? So like shoulders and neck and upper back?
Yeah, so the classic thing is it's a time trial position. If you ask me, the hardest thing about it is the cervical or your neck has to extend. So it's a little bit unnatural, needs a bit of training. So it's a pain that burn. People know it's the burning pain you get between your shoulder blades, or the fact that you constantly feel like you have to move your neck and head. Pain in the bottom underneath your shoulder here is quite often tight lats. So a really good thing, if you're doing a lot of swimming, what you often find is with triathletes or Ironman is that if they're not stretching their lats, the latissimus dorsi is a massive muscle with a huge, and it comes in and that will really lock the shoulder down and it'll pull you back in the aero position. It can lead to a lot of that discomfort. So working on lat flexibility is one of my key bullet point holes. I go, right, if you get that moving, then you'll be able to be much more flexible in your shoulder. So yeah, shoulder pain, middle of the back, between the shoulder pain, neck extension, those types of things.
Excellent. And have you got any sort of good examples of people that have come to you with this sort of conundrum of aero versus comfort and how you've helped them out?
Yeah, I mean, we've looked after British Triathlon's like performance program for 6 years now, and the obsession with some people putting aero bars on a road bike, it just doesn't go together for me. I don't mind people having aero bars on a road bike for resting, if that makes sense, they're very high up. But I think the notion that you can get more air on a road bike with aero bars it's got very short swift with a lot of people, mainly because a time trial bike, the main difference about it is more powerful because the seat position is in line and you're back on a road bike. So if you are going to use aero bars on a road bike, I'd suggest significantly dropping crank length to open your hip back up and getting as high and far forward as you can. And some people, can't have two different bikes, and you can get a very good position on that. But so there's one of the things. So I think there's sometimes a false dawn in chasing after that on a really aero position on a road bike. Better to just maybe get really comfortable getting the drops, and that might be lower crank length again. It really is crank length. So my golden rule is if you're on a road bike, your crank length should be 5 mil less on your TT bike, and if it isn't, it's probably the reason why you're not. I can't believe how many people come in and say, I'm more powerful on my road bike than my TT bike. And immediately I know what the problem is, and I feel sorry for them because they're literally leaving watts on the floor. Your time trial bike is your most powerful bike, right? It is more aero as well, but I almost see that as an after thing. It's like, it should be the most powerful thing you can pedal because your hip should be directly over the bottom bracket, losing your glute as well as your quad, getting really strong on it. I've got a good example of someone very famous doing that. Bradley Wiggins, when he wins the Tour de France in 2012, the final time trial. If you look at any picture of that, you'll notice that all these aero riser bars at the front are actually shiny aluminium, and they're heavier than carbon. And the reason why they are is that he could have more variety of position with the aluminium than we could with carbon. We could have, I think, 2 or 3 positions with carbon. With the aluminium, we got 7. He could optimize his position to the exact right position for him. And we calculated quite accurately that 2 gram hit we were going to take on aluminium was actually, we were getting loads back out in terms of the amount of power and aero and sustainability he got in return for that. So I think that's a classic thing in full sight of someone winning the biggest bike race in the world is a heavier piece of kit to allow a better position.
Superb. Going right back to when you were talking about aero bars on road bikes, is that a same recommendation for someone who's like maybe doing their first 70.3, Ironman 70.3? They've got a road bike at the moment and they might be thinking, maybe I should get a time trial bike, and they're not sure. Is there a good argument for them to think, well, actually, I'll put aero bars on this road bike instead? Or what are your thoughts there?
I think in a half or full Ironman where you're using a road bike, I think it's a bit like in the Tour de France. Sometimes they'll have a time trial and some of it will be uphill, and they use a road bike to uphill and then swap bike to go time trial downhill. So there's the answer to that, like an uphill position downhill. In an Ironman contest or 70.3, as you said, you can put aero bars on there, but I would say that is almost like a resting position that is slightly more aero. So it would be with good height at the front, yeah? You don't have to be really low there, but coming in and folding your envelope into a nice position here, A, gives your upper body a big rest from being here, and secondly, because you're working different muscles, and probably gives a little bit, a different aero pocket to push through and give you a rest. So I think if you put it in that context, I think, okay, I'm going to put these bars in there, but the big thing I can't stress it enough, is that make sure that you drop your crank length on the road bike if you're going to put the aero bars on, because you'll be able to get in the aero bars so much easier and stay there. It's your hips closing up at the top of the pedal stroke, or people feel like then their thighs are coming into their chest, that they can't breathe properly because their diaphragm can't descend. Your knees are getting close to the clip on back there. dropping crank length makes such a big difference, you know. And an example of that real world is like, Bradley Wiggins, 3 weeks before his hour record, was riding 177.5 and heard that we were going to, the Rare Olympics, we were going down with Team Pursuit. He was training next to him and he said, "Oh, do you think I should do that?" And he dropped 7.5 mil to 170 against our recommendations, because that's a big drop. So close. But there's a man who won the Tour de France, and immediately he was able to be, I think, a 3.5% drop in CDA, right? And that's, you wouldn't say Bradley had a bad time trial position, would you? But there's the key. Even he can benefit from small changes to allow a better position in himself. He was like, this is so much more comfortable, so I think everyone can benefit from a little bit of it's just sensible, sage, well thought through advice.
Absolutely. So I've got a funny feeling I know what number one is going to be, but I was going to ask you for your top 3 hacks of equipment or, changes that we can make to be more aero and more comfortable.
On any, I think on road, it is crank length, because it enables you to open up your hips and keep your saddle position in the most powerful one whilst being aero. It is the biggest factor, believe you me. By the way, 5 mil drop in crank length in itself is something like a 1.5 to 2% drop in CDA, because it's a small circle in the air. But that's not why I'm doing it, On a road bike, I think handlebar width, it is the big thing. So like riding 44 bars when you can be comfortable on 38, that is like being a windsock, It makes a demonstrous difference. So exploring shorter, narrower handlebars at the cost of your overall comfort is a cheap way to get really aero before you descend lower and lower at the front, So I would encourage people to do that, if they can get narrow handlebars. And the last one. Aero bars are great. Think about what you're using them for. So we call them aero bars, but they're used in like Race Across America, and it's not for being aero, it's for having a different position. I think if you're doing your first Ironman and you're riding for that long, just having as many different comfortable places you can put your hands and your upper body makes a massive difference. So I think and my stroke 3B I'm absolutely convinced, instead of being flat stick with aero bars, angling them, we all know the high ends position is really popular now, and I'm sure the aerodynamicists would tell us, yes, that's more aero and stuff like that, but it's a hell of a lot more easier to hold, because instead of feeling like you're a fried egg flying off an oily pan, you've got something to push back against. A really quick trick with that is if you try and do a plank at home with your arms flat on the floor, see how long you can last, full total, without failing. Then put 3 pillows underneath your arms and try and do it again. I guarantee you'll last longer. Because when you raise the front, you can engage more of the musculature in your upper body to support the lower one. And that's time trialing. Like you've got something to engage your core with and push back against, and something for you to work with. Whereas the old school, very, flat, falling off the front, aero bar is bloody hard to hold. It really is.
I can already sense Phil's next video, actually, with that. Bring in the plank challenge. Nice one. And I guess one last question just to finish off with. How do people get hold of you, Phil?
Well, I mean, we can always come into see us in the clinic. We're based in Manchester, the Manchester Institute of Health and Performance. But we do have a new offering at the moment, which is why I'm really excited about democratizing bike fit for those who aren't geographically close to it, or financially can't afford the full in-person experience, which will never be replaced completely, because some people need that. But what we're working on now is you can download an app called MyVeloFit. You can have the app tell you what you should change about your positions, and that's very cheap and cost effective and will work for a lot of people. But you can also book a expert fit review. So anyone in the world now can have a bike fit with me, and you download that, fill in a questionnaire, I look at your data, and we provide a video and a plan back to you. And it's working really, really well. And I honestly just like helping people keep cycling and achieve their goals. It's so important that people can keep healthy, and we keep people from the worst thing I ever hear is when people come in and go, I'm about to throw away my bike because of this issue or that pain, and helping to do that just gives me a real buzz.
Phenomenal. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time. We'll hit the stop button there. Nice one.
Thank you, Ant, and a big thanks to Phil Burt for those brilliant insights. If you're aiming to improve your cycling or triathlon performance, check out our affordable training plans at myprocoach.net. You'll get structured workouts and rapid coach support, and the link's in the description if you want to learn more. If you'd like more tips, watch the video on screen now, or for a deeper dive, check out our full cycling playlist. And if you enjoyed this one, please like, subscribe, and leave us a comment. We'd love to hear how you're getting on.